All right, let's take a look at line 1. I observe right away that line 1 is a horizontal line. I know that horizontal lines, okay, I'm going to observe that it's horizontal. I know that horizontal lines are always y equals a number, okay, always, right? Because this is a line that has a slope of 0, so you can think of it as like y equals 0x plus whatever the y-intercept is. In this case, look, the y value is 2. Right? So like this is y equals 0x plus 2. I would just type y equals 2. Now, look, let's say, so here, look, let's actually write this. Like in this case, a horizontal line is always y equals a number. In this particular case, it's y equals 2. Okay? Now, let's say you're like, oh, is it x equals or y equals? It doesn't, like, if you don't remember, so what? You try it. So look, I'm going to type y equals 2. And does it come out looking like the line that I want? Yep, it sure does. Now look, had I like screwed it up, right? And I had instead typed x equals 2. Like had I instead typed x equals 2, x equals 2, look, then it would have given me this vertical line. I would have known like, oh, that's wrong. So then I would have just changed it. Okay, so use Desmos to get yourself the feedback. Okay, now, I don't want the whole line y equals 2. I only want it from here to here. So I'm going to cut it using my x values. So my x values are, look, I'm going to use my funny brackets, and I want my x values from -3 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 4. And in Desmos, honestly, don't worry about the less than or equal to sign. You could just use the signs on your keyboard. But what we need is these funny little brackets. Okay, a little trickier to find on the iPad. And what I wanted it was from -3 to 4. So I'm going to type from -3 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 4. And for me on the iPad, it's easy to just use the less than or equal to sign. But again, it's totally fine if you just use the less than signs. And look, I'm just going to make this a tiny bit thicker just so you can see it clearly. Okay, but there is my line 1. Okay, and notice I'm checking and I'm seeing like, does it look right? Okay, so on Desmos, you get immediate feedback. Okay, line 2. Line 2 is a vertical line. Okay, now vertical lines are always x equals a number. Okay, these lines have undefined slopes, right? The slope is undefined, so we don't use our y equals mx plus b. That wouldn't work because that uses the slope and the y-intercept. This line has an undefined slope, so that wouldn't work for us. It's x equals. And what does x equal here? Look, I'm going to go to the number on the x-axis. In this case, x equals -3. And remember, vertical lines are the only time when we use the range instead of the domain, and I want this line, x equals -3, from a y value of -4 up to a y value of 2. So I'm going to write -4 is less than or equal to y is less than or equal to 2. And once again, I'm going to take this and I'm going to write it into my Desmos, and I'm going to make sure that it looks the way I want it to look. So I'm going to write x equals -3, and then I'm going to get my funny brackets, and I'm going to write -4 is less than or equal to, and this time I'm putting y, because this is a range, is less than or equal to 2. Oops, 2. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and, just like before, I'm just going to thicken this up a little bit so we can see it. And let's take a look. Does it look how I want it to look? Let's see. Yep, it looks the same. It meets my line number 1 right here, and it comes down to -4. Okay, now for line number 3. Line number 3 is a slanted line, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my y equals mx plus b, right? So I'm going to find my b is -3, right? That's my y-intercept. And then my m, right, that's going to be my rise over run. So I'm just going to find 2 points. I'm going to use my y-intercept, and I'm going to use this one. And I'm going to count my rise is 1, and my run is 3. So my slope, right, I notice it's a positive slope, so it's positive 1/3 x minus 3. Okay, and before I even type the domain, I'm going to go ahead and type my equation and kind of make sure I'm on the right track. So I got 1/3 x minus 3, and I kind of just check and make sure like it looks right. Yeah, right, it's like hitting my blue line. It's slanting up just the way I want it to. And then for my domain, I want it from an x value of -3 all the way to here to an x value of 6. So that's -3 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 6. So let's type that in. I get my little funny brackets, and I'm going from negative 3 is less than or equal to x, right? I'm using my domain, so I'm using x. It's less than or equal to 6. Okay, and then again, let me just thicken this up just so we can see it a little bit better. And it's looking really good so far, and it looks like all I have is this one line that's left, my number 4. Okay, now here's something I noticed about line 4. Line 4 doesn't touch my y-axis. Okay, now look, it does eventually, right? Like, look, if I put my pencil along it, I can see, like, I can guess. Like, I'm looking like, I don't know, where does it touch my y-axis? Maybe like 8 or 9, something like that. So now look, I can come over here and I can find the slope, right? So like, let's use, this is going to be y equals mx plus b. Now the b is what I don't know because I can't see it on the graph, but we're going to figure it out in a second. Okay, now, but let's look at the slope because I can just use 2 points and count my rise over run. So I'm going to go rise of 3 and run of 2. I see my line is negative, okay? So my slope is negative 3 over 2, okay? Now look, what I can do is I can kind of just like mess with Desmos. I can say, okay, y equals negative 3 over 2 x. And like, okay, so that looks like the right slope. Now look, like I can just like mess with it, be like, plus 7. Needs to be a little higher. Okay, let's see. I could do plus 8. Oh, look, nailed it. Okay, so it's like you can just use Desmos and kind of mess with it, right? So that's fine, and that's like the correct answer. But the other option is I could take my slope and I could say, you know what, I'm going to grab one of these points. So like, look, I'm going to grab this one. I'll grab this one since it's positive. This point is 4, 2. So I just pulled any point off the line. Doesn't matter which point. Look, I could have done this one. I could have done this one. If there was another lattice point, I could have chosen that one. But look, this is my xy. Okay, I'm going to plug in 2 equals. This is x, right? This is y equals mx plus b. Now look, I can just do the math like I've been doing, right? So I'm going to do this math. This is 3 over 2 times 4 over 1. This is 12 over 2, which is 6. Look, this is a negative times a positive, so it's negative 6 plus b. And then I'm going to add 6 to both sides, and there's my 8. So look, I actually found my equation using the strategy that we've been learning. So I had my slope. I pulled my slope off the graph, right? I read the slope using rise over run. And then over here, I found my y-intercept using some math. So now look, I have my equation. And look, it's the same equation that I kind of guessed on a little bit. Okay, and that's fine. You could do either way. But then I still need my range, which is I only want it from here to here. So I only want it from an x value of 4 to an x value of 6. So that's going to look like this. Let's type it in. An x value of 4 to an x value of 6. Let me just thicken this up a little bit. Okay, and you can take a look and see that my image on Desmos looks exactly like this one. Okay, so there it all is.